Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Look, if you had one shot, or one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment, would you capture it? Just let it slip.
The Box Seats Super Bowl edition with Alex B. Smith and Bob Sullivan here on LateNightSportsRadio.com. If you'd like to call in, the call-in number is 585-633-7487. Alex, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good, despite the fact that there's a tremendous amount of snowfall outside my apartment right now. But I'm doing pretty good because it's Super Sunday weekend. I don't know if we can say Super Bowl. Hopefully, we won't be getting an email or like a cease and desist letter from Goodell and them. But I don't know. They probably won't. But yeah, I don't know. It's Super Bowl weekend, and I love this time of year. It's sad that football's coming to an end. In a way, it's sad. It's actually kind of nice for me because then I can sleep in on some Sundays now. But we got a great football game coming up, and there'll be lots of parties and food and some great bets, and it's a combination of everything. It's almost better than Christmas if you think about it.
It is. The food's great. The parties are great. I mean, everything is great about this great day to be alive, really. And it doesn't even matter who's playing. People are going to watch for whatever reason. I still believe the dumbest reason to be watching the Super Bowl is for the commercials, because if you think about it, really, those are never really that good. They really haven't been good since, in my opinion, Terry Tate, Office linebacker. So if you want to talk about, watching it for that reason, I mean, to each their own, but in my opinion, that's a stupid reason to be watching a game. Or
what makes that worse? What makes it worse is that now, the last 3 years, especially with me, I host a Super Bowl party every year, so I don't get time to follow it during the game. I'm up, getting people, another beer or grabbing food for myself or whatever. But we have the internet now, and you can go on YouTube and watch. I've watched a lot of the commercials that'll be airing Sunday already, and there's actually some pretty good ones. I won't spoil any for anybody. I've seen some really funny commercials that will be airing this Sunday, but you can catch them beforehand, and if you're actually paying attention to those, you'll end up seeing some of them on TV actually a little bit earlier than that because of how they there's a pay loop thing that I read about online too. So it's not even, the commercials aren't even as special as they once were, not because of the quality, but just because of the way that they're introduced online now.
I find it interesting with the commercials. Like, you're almost better off now having to have a commercial pulled because of controversy. Like a couple years ago, Snickers had, not that Snickers needs more of a fan base or eating base, but they had one a couple years ago where they had to act manly after two guys kissed, and it was controversial over the whole gay aspect. And then last year, I think it was Nationwide, who had a commercial where the child was dead.
Yeah, I remember that. People freaked on that one.
Yeah, that one was in really poor taste. But I think you're almost better off putting together a commercial that is going to have to be pulled after the fact, because then people are going to go Google your product.
Mm-hmm.
That's what.
Yeah, definitely.
And looking at the the Super Bowl, Panthers Broncos, are you excited about this matchup? Do you feel like we were let down not getting a certain matchup this postseason in the Super Bowl, or do you think this is just fun?
Well, no, I mean, it's funny because the two teams that, we can go back, through the archives of the show, and I said it several times throughout the year. I said that these are the two most overrated teams in football, dating back to October. I knew that Denver was only relying on their defense. I knew that Peyton Manning was, slowly going past his prime, which he still is. I'm not retracting that statement at all, but highly, underrated the Carolina Panthers this year. Cam Newton's just having an all-world season. Their defense is great. Their offense stepped up when guys were hurt. Even with both sides of the ball, they had guys hurt all year, but the next man up really applied to that team. So they've done well, and I think this ended up being the best matchup of all the playoff teams. We had two really bad teams get into the postseason earlier, Washington and Houston. They got dispatched pretty quickly. The Packers and the Steelers and the Patriots, the usual suspects, if you will, they weren't up to their usual selves. Seattle got lucky and then got bounced out. Minnesota had a great season but couldn't hang on. So we really got the best matchup, in my opinion, as far as it goes. These were the top two seeds, and they deserve to be playing right now. The way that everything matches up now, point spread and total wise, watching, I had New England and Arizona championship Sunday, so lost quite a bit. But I'd already had in my head who I would be betting in the Super Bowl based on whatever combination of matchups. And so I jumped right on all over Carolina -4.5 when that number opened on that Sunday. It opened. It was right after the game pretty much ended. That number has ballooned up to 5, ballooned up towards 6. And it's everybody's, right now has money on Carolina. If you hear from any books in Vegas or any offshore books, they have liability on Carolina, both ticket wise and money wise. So there's going to be some buyback from the sharps on Denver when that number starts creeping toward that 6-7 range, which of course we all know is the key number in the NFL. So my approach to it would be to wait for it to go to 6.5, which I'm guessing will happen within the next 48 to 72 hours. And then instead of playing back Denver +6, I'm going to shoot for a big middle and tease Denver, which will bring it up to +12. And I'm going to also tease the over, which will bring it down to around 39, 38.5. And hope for a big middle shot in between those two and hopefully get a little bit of extra cash on that over.
Are you, with Denver, I feel like, they kind of started off this season like, okay, it's Peyton Manning's last go. They're going to have, Peyton Manning's coming back. They're going to have a good run with Peyton Manning. And then going into the season with Carolina, it's like, okay, well, the NFC South, it's not a good division. It'll probably be, 9-10 win season from whoever wins it. Carolina, even when they're, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-0 is just, well, this team's overrated. Not just from you, from everybody.
Yeah.
And, are you surprised at how big the line is, going into the season? If these two would have met up in the Super Bowl, would you have guessed a, 5-6 point spread here?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I mean, a lot of books had Carolina as a 60-1 long shot to just even, reach the Super Bowl. And I know there were a lot of books that had liabilities, future liabilities with Denver. Denver was a popular bet going into the season along with New England as far as AFC teams go. So, no, I'm sure if you had asked any bookmaker in the world, if you told them in September that it's going to be Carolina, Denver would probably easily be a 2-touchdown favorite in that spot. And that would have changed over time, obviously, with Osweiler being in and then Peyton coming back. And so there's a lot of factors that would have changed this number, around. It would have bounced around about 20 different times before it settled anywhere close to this weekend. But no, like I said, this definitely wasn't the matchup anyone expected at the beginning of the year or even hell at the middle of the year. But like I said, overtime, I think this is one of those rare years where really the top two teams in the league are meeting for the final game of the regular season.
The first half spread right now, Carolina favored by 3.5, Denver, and then total of 23. What do you see from a first half total and spread right there?
I think that total's a little high. I could see these teams, obviously, we talking about two very good defenses. Obviously, Denver's the number 1 defense in the league. Carolina is a top 5, top 6 unit. Of course, they do have some injury issues with Davis breaking his arm. Thomas Davis, he says he's going to play this game, but he has a plate and 11 screws in his forearm. So not sure how effective he's going to be doing much of anything in that game other than being a motivational factor on the sideline. But nonetheless, two very good defenses, and we have a first-time quarterback in the Super Bowl in Cam Newton, and we have an older Peyton Manning who has been hesitant to throw the ball deep, doesn't have that same touch. likes to hand the ball off a little bit more these days. So 23.5 is a little high. I can see where we might get, I wouldn't be shocked to see a scoreless first quarter. Might see a couple of field goals here and there, maybe one touchdown. But I think if I had to play the first half, I haven't played anything in the first half wise, but I would lean toward the under the 23. I think we're going to see more points scored in the second half of this ball game.
See, I'm the opposite with this one because of how quick a start Carolina has gotten off to in a couple of these postseason games, and it would just take a couple touchdowns from them and a touchdown on a field goal from Denver, which I know we're asking a lot against two good defenses, but I'm leaning towards the over in the first half just strictly from Carolina getting off to a good start in the first two playoff games they've played. And, the running game, I think, obviously, eventually the Denver defense will probably start to break down in the second half with just taking body punch after body punch from this Carolina team. But first half, I'd lean towards the over. I'm not 100% confident in that, but that's how I would lean just from what's gone on in this postseason so far.
And and like I said, I'm also kind of, my bets reflecting my opinion, obviously. Like I said, I feel that there'll be more scoring in the second half. I'm not saying it's going to be a complete flip-flop in the second half. I think this will be a fairly tight game, and I do think, points will come at a premium, but I feel like these two teams will be, these are like I said, we've got two very cerebral quarterbacks, two very cerebral coaches. I think they'll make a lot of the proper adjustments in the second half, and that's what I'm banking on. My final score for this game, projecting Carolina to win 31-23. So, I think this thing will go. I think it goes way over the total. However, 45.5. Like I said, that's one of those numbers where something could happen. A touchdown that should have gone in, that gets called back, or a fumble here, a fumble there, and that game could fall just a little bit under that number. So, in teasing it with that Denver number to try and shoot for that middle, I'd be cashing both of those in, but I'd be getting a very easy, very each club.
Okay. Let's get into some prop bets here for the game. What has caught your eye early on for some of these prop bets?
Oh, it's funny. I'll tell a brief last. That I jumped on right away early as far as the game went, but I didn't have much of a take on either team because it was top flight offense versus top flight defense. So it had to really pick and choose on certain props. And I did very well on props last year, but what I cashed in the highest on last year was the NBA game that day, or things of that nature. But you can't bet on anything that's even coin toss is I think on the board, and for the first time ever you can bet the MVP winner in the state of Nevada. But you have to go offshore to find certain props on the over under for the national anthem, or what will be the first song sung by whoever is performing on at halftime. And that is a play that I do have involving Coldplay and Beyonce. You can get those. I have a package that I'm selling those in. But one of the props I will mention, though, that just came out today is Lady Gaga singing the national anthem. And while that just seems all right, well, the over under the national anthem, you can kind of just go back in time and see, who sang what or whatever. And it only spend a couple minutes to really research this. If they've sang a national anthem before, you can go on YouTube and see how long it took them beforehand. If you know what kind of style of singer they are, if they're, someone with a big voice like a Christina Aguilera or a Lady Gaga or, Alicia Keys a couple years ago might tend to sing a little longer than somebody else, who might sing a little bit shorter. So when I found out today that Lady Gaga was announced to sing the national anthem, I hit YouTube and searched, and sure enough, there was a New York City gay pride rally in 2013 where she sang. And it wasn't planned. It didn't seem planned at all. She was actually doing a speech and broke into the national anthem. You have to watch the video to get the context of that. But she missed a couple of words and rushed a couple of spots in the song and still went over 2 minutes and 5 seconds. That's fairly long to sing a national anthem. So I'm guessing that the number released today by Bovada was over 220. That's a little long, even for a singer of her stature. I would probably bet it under, but if you find a number at your local shop or another offshore that is around, say, 210, I saw it 2 minutes one book before they even announced anybody. Definitely hammer the over on that. So you can try and create a middle if you really, feel so inclined. But it's props like that, and there's props, with these player props and other things where people can really put in the work and the research and cash in on these props. These aren't as goofy as they once seemed 20 years ago when they first started. We have so much information, especially with fantasy football and so many different advanced statistics and math and correlated mathematics, that people can really make some money on these props more so than the actual game bets themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems more it seems smarter to go after these props than to go after the actual game itself. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's obviously entertaining ones like, will Left Shark make an appearance on stage during the Super Bowl halftime? Yes or no?
Right.
And, obvious. I'm going to leave that one alone because it's just too much up to chance, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But, how many times will dab or dabbing be said by the announcers during the broadcast? Over 2 is even odds. Under 2, it'll be shown. I mean, I guess if Cam Newton scores once or twice, you're going to have to say it at least twice. But I can't see them overusing the word. I mean, with Nance and Phil Simms, I can't see them overusing dab in this situation. I'm going to leave that one alone.
And you know what? You make a good point with that. To jump in briefly, I feel like when you look at those things of will certain things be mentioned. I think obviously you have to take the broadcasters in context. I feel like if this were a Fox broadcast, I think Buck and Aikman would be talking about dabbing a lot more than, like you said, Jim Nantz and Phil Simms, for example. Or just certain things, or historic guy like Al Michaels might want to mention, Ron Rivera playing in Super Bowl 20 for the Bears, or how John Fox used to coach both of these teams. There's little things like little nuanced things like that. You have to know who's calling the game to research those things. But like you said, if you I feel like the Super Bowl for us as sports bettors and football fans, it's really like our final exams. If we've been paying attention to all these things, over the season, and we go back and review all of our notes, we can figure out all these little things that'll be on the test, Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what really makes that, for me, that's one of the most exciting parts, is that we can kind of reflect slightly some of our total cumulative work over a preseason and regular season. I mean, we've been talking about football, in grave detail since early July, and now we kind of get to put at least a final synopsis of what we've learned in this 2015-2016 NFL season on display with some of these wagers.
The one I am going to bet, will Mike Carey be wrong about a challenge? I'm putting money on yes because of how many times that just seems like it's going to happen. There's going to be a challenge, and it doesn't matter whether there's 5 challenges or 4 challenges. He's going to be wrong on one of them because his batting average is, below the Mendoza line, I would guess, on what he's doing. And, half the time it seems like he didn't even watch the play. And then the other half of the time it's like, this guy was an NFL referee that had to make these decisions.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
Yeah, it is sad, and to think that he was actually one of the better referees in his time. I mean, he did quite a few Super Bowls, So I don't know if it's just maybe maybe he's kind of like some of the players that end up being in the booth, after they play. He's not in the feel of the game and he can't really keep up with it anymore. So maybe I think that's the case because he didn't seem like he blew that many calls when he was on the field. So, I think that's kind of I guess that's the excuse I'm going to kind of make for Mike Carey because he has made a lot of bad calls since he's been, working these games in the booth.
It's almost like when you think like, oh, well, Steve Young, very good quarterback, was easy to listen to when he would talk on TV as a player. And then he gets into doing analytical stuff, and you're like, not that great. Like he's better than a majority, but when it would make sense for him to be good, he's not. And it's kind of the same thing with Mike Carey. You'd think, okay, he was one of the better refs, and now he's just terrible at his job.
But you got to remember, it's Steve Young too. He had, at least a dozen well-documented concussions. Kind of the same thing with Troy Aikman. I forgive Troy Aikman for being off topic at times and kind of rambling and ranting and raving a little bit because, let's face it, I remember watching a game where it looked like, his eyes were, going to just basically drop out of his head and fall out of his mouth, the way he got hit back in the 90s. So some of these guys, like I said, great personalities, but, the light doesn't always stay on sometimes.
One cross sport bet that intrigues me. What will be higher, Emmanuel Sanders receiving yards, or Tiger Woods first round score at Masters 2016? That's like a 2-month bet in the process.
Yeah.
One, if say Tiger doesn't play in the Masters, do you just get your money back in that situation? I assume.
Yeah, and I was going to say that, especially with a lot of those cross sport props, which are the most. You can find them all over the place, but you can find the vast majority of those if you're out in Las Vegas for the weekend. I highly recommend checking out the Las Vegas Westgate. Jay Cornegay and his group of guys, they do a tremendous job. They spend hours and hours not only making these props, but putting them up there on the board and adjusting numbers and so forth. They do a wonderful job every year. So if you're going out to Las Vegas, you listen to this, or you're in Vegas, I highly recommend putting some money down over there and checking out that property. They've got a great new renovation as well. But as far as those cross props go, yes, you have to check with the rules. A lot of those involve whether if the player doesn't play, especially for a golf tournament or for the NBA, if that player is inactive before the game, that will it'll be a refund on the bet. So please make sure to double check that when you bet that. I'm not sure what it is exactly for that particular bet you're talking about, but I would suggest that if Tiger Woods isn't playing, you would get a refund on that.
Well, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to continue talking more prop bets, food that will be at our parties, and I will explain the Pitbull phenomenon at his Super Bowl party here on the Box Seats with Alex B. Smith and Bob Sullivan here on LateNightSportsRadio.com.
See, I want you till so far away. I know. Can't walk away from the things you say, the things you say, yeah, the price you pay for love. Can't walk away from the things you say, the things you say, yeah, the price you pay for love. No, no, no. Can't walk away from the things you say, the things you say, yeah, the price you pay for love. Can't walk away from the things you say, the things you say, yeah, the price you pay for love.
Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Welcome back to the Box Seats here on latenightsportsradio.com. If you'd like to call in, the call number is 585-633-7487. Contact Alex Smith. Alex, taking a look at here, will either backup quarterback take a snap in the game? And yes, plus 200. There's a slight chance that Peyton Manning gets knocked out here with a possible appearance by Brock Osweiler.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't lock that in, but that's not something I would be. Or Cam Newton taking a hard hit, getting dazed a little bit. Matt Moore has to show up. We haven't seen it all year. Why would it happen now? But stranger things have happened.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing with that play. That actually kind of touches with one of the plays that I have now. I'll give this one out. This is where shopping around, and you have to definitely look at verbiage when it comes to some of these prop plays too. Now, if you go to you're at Westgate or a couple other properties have this, they have a over under on number of players with a passing attempt. So I was able to grab over 2.5 plus 175. And what that'll cover is it doesn't have to be a backup quarterback. That could be a trick play. If Cam Newton flips it over to, Jonathan Stewart and Stewart throws it downfield or whatever. So I have that based on the fact that, okay, we haven't seen trick plays from either coach. Doesn't seem like they would really have a whole lot of trick plays under their sleeve. These two pretty conservative coaches. However, one we talked about, Peyton Manning could get knocked out, or let's say this game's a blowout. If this game's a blowout, do you really think that Gary Kubiak's just going to leave Peyton Manning in, which is possibly his last game of his career to get, leave him to hang out to dry? I wouldn't be shocked if Ross Osweiler would come in if there's a blowout in the first half. Furthermore, if you look at Carolina's roster, they actually have a kick returner and wide receiver who plays mostly special teams, who was once a quarterback, in Joe Webb. Who's to say that he doesn't, line up in the slot and it's a trick play, and they try something where he, throw downfield. So I think it's a solid enough price, and there's a couple of solid enough variables to where 175, that's a good value. So I went and took that over 2.5.
Will Peyton Manning be seen crying at any point during the entire broadcast? I've never seen him show any emotion along those lines. I just don't, whether he retires or not, whether they win or not, I don't see him crying. That's not a type of thing I've seen from him.
And I agree with that too. When I first saw it, I thought, that's something I wouldn't imagine him seeing. But however, I watched a little bit of what they called Super Bowl opening night last night. So it was kind of their first media runaround. And there was at one point, I don't know who asked the question. It's hard to tell who asks which questions in one of these scrums, but the quote from Manning was that he was saying that lately in his career, he's been getting a little more emotional. And it was a reference to him talking to Tom Brady and Bill Belichick after the AFC title game and saying how, if this is the last time I face you guys, it's been, a joy battling against you guys for so long. And so he made this comment about being a little more emotional now at the latter stages of his career. So, plus 600, I would make maybe a beer sized bet on that. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I mean, if they win this game, he takes them downfield for a last second drive to win this game. I could see him possibly getting overcome with emotion. If he gets his head kicked in like he did the last time in the Super Bowl, I wouldn't be shocked if we see him maybe shed a tear there too. So I don't know. Based on his comments and the price, it's not something I completely would have shied away from. Where as opposed to when I saw it last week, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, we're definitely not going to see that. So I don't know. That quote kind of shifted my thoughts a little bit.
Yeah, I find that to be maybe I'll be more inclined to stay away from it, but I just don't. He's never done it before. I just don't see him doing that. And then the announcing his retirement after the game. I see him waiting a week or two, giving it have that happen. I just don't. That's just the way I see it. How about you?
No, I don't see him. I mean, he's been very, very roundabout in answering that question, and we obviously do kind of get the feeling that he will announce his retirement at some point. I just don't think right after the game will be that moment.
Mm-hmm. Any player props that you like that you're gonna really go after right now?
One of my highest prop plays that I have right now. It's not as high as a couple others, but one I have, I think, will Cam Newton score a touchdown? And that's a non-passing touchdown, mind you. Some of these props, like I said, you have to check the verbiage. It just says, will Cam Newton score a touchdown? So that's either rushing or receiving. It's a yes or no prop that I played at +1. I got a +140. I think it's dropped now to +120, which I think is still a decent value. I mean, you look at how electrifying he's been, and you look at how, let's talk about Denver's game planning the last couple of weeks against the offenses they've had to see. Last week, they only had the game plan for the pass against Tom Brady. We knew New England, they had no running game whatsoever. The week before, you got a really banged up Steeler team. Roethlisberger's hurt. Doesn't have his normal running back. Doesn't have a couple of his wide receivers. So obviously they're going to throw the ball a little more, but they didn't have to worry too much about the run game. Well, Denver's defense has to worry about Cam Newton throwing the ball effectively, which he has. They have to worry about him taking off and running. They have to worry about the read option combination between him and Jonathan Stewart. They got to worry about a plethora of decent receivers and Ted Ginn, Devin Funchess, Greg Olsen down the middle. A lot of things that Denver's defense has to look at. So I do think that Cam Newton's going to be involved more in the game plan. You're going to see a lot of more read option stuff. We might see him, line up in the shotgun with Stewart and Mike Tolbert at his side. I do think he's going to end up being in the end zone himself. I think we do see him score, which obviously there's the other correlated prop of, will he do either the Superman or dab celebration? If you find a correlated, play on that, maybe worth throwing a little bit of money on as well.
Are there any, if you had to lock in one for a Super Bowl MVP, who would you be leaning towards right now that's not a quarterback?
One that's not a quarterback. I would honestly say Luke Kuechly. I could see where, he makes the difference, and, he obviously has the talent to jump in front of a pass. He has 2 pick sixes already in the playoffs, and there's actually a prop that I saw of, will he get a pick six in this game? Yes, plus 600. That's not a bad price at all. So he's one of those guys who can jump a route and has enough speed to get past that that one line and run into the end zone. So I think if he's the leader of that defense, and if this defense steps up and wins this ball game, and he ends up getting a score, I could easily see, and we can kind of tie this in with the whole media debacle of how Cam Newton's portrayed, in the media. If another player steps up larger than Cam Newton in this game, and Carolina wins, I don't think they'll hesitate one bit to give the MVP to somebody other than Cam Newton. There's some people who would much rather likely to see that, sadly. And so, if I had to play a non QB MVP play, that would be my pick, Luke Kuechly.
I can't believe there's not any bets. I haven't seen any as far as how much criticism. I guess you can't quantify it, but how much criticism Cam Newton will receive throughout the telecast, or talk of criticism that he gets.
Yeah. How many mentions of it? I mean, it's hard to quantify.
Letters sent to Cam Newton or something like that.
Well, that would be interesting. Yeah, they should have had a yes/no prop on whether the original dab letter will be mentioned. I don't think it will be, but yeah, I mean, I think that would have been an interesting prop.
What would going into the second half, say if what would what circumstances would you like there to be for you to be placing second half bets as far as over under and whatnot? How are you going to base it going into the Super Bowl?
I mean that's always tough to tell beforehand. I haven't played as many second halves this year like I did last year. Last year I was really locked in a group with second half wagers, and that was mostly in the season. But even in the playoffs, I don't think I had more than. I think I'm looking back at my notes. I only think I had maybe one or two second half plays last year. So that's hard to figure out now. Like I said, I do think the first half could go under. If the first half goes way under 23, then it's going to be tough, because we're going to see a hard stance, from books, protecting their original numbers. So we're not going to get any tremendous value if the game goes as planned according to the first half numbers. We're going to have something astronomical go, so something like a 3-0 first half or a blowout over first half. We've seen Carolina jump out to 2 huge first half leads this postseason, and we saw Seattle nearly come back and Arizona just not give a valiant effort. So should Carolina jump out to a giant lead, maybe I would lean and look at taking Denver if they get obviously would be getting double digits, so that's possible for the second half. If they get plus 8.5 second half and it's 31-0 Carolina, I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think Denver's going to roll over in a Super Bowl. They didn't roll over in that Super Bowl. They got blown out against Seattle. They just got dominated for 60 minutes. So I don't see them rolling over this time. And we've seen Carolina's defense let up with a half. So that it would take something big for me to look at a second half. But I think I'm pretty much staying pat with everything in that half. I won't be doing any live wagers because I'll be hosting a party, so I won't have any time for that. So I'm pretty confident with my portfolio as far as plays go for the Sunday.
Well, going into Sunday, you are hosting a Super Bowl party. I will be going to one. What is on the what are the must-haves for an Alex Smith Super Bowl party?
Well, the must-haves at my party, I've been hosting parties for the Super Bowl now for well over 10 years, and only in the last few years have they become alcohol parties. Obviously, I didn't drink much underage. But one of the biggest things I do, and everybody loves it every year, is I do team color Jello shots, and usually right around Championship Sunday. I'll post on my Facebook, or I'll send some emails to friends or text or whatever and be like, okay, if these teams win, what kind of Jello and what kind of booze should I do? So this year ended up being Denver and Carolina. So we got an orange team and we've got a light blue team. So I'm doing light blue Jello. Not sure what alcohol I'm doing just yet, and then I'm doing orange Jello, And that's the thing that you can find different flavors of Jello. I
Sure.
actually am doing peach Jello this year instead of just straight up orange.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna use champagne instead of like a usual, rather than like a peach schnapps or something. So that's one of the biggest things I have for my party. And of course, obviously some sort of buffalo food. I'm not doing wings this year. I'm doing buffalo shrimp. I also like to have either shredded pork or shredded chicken. That's also a must-have as well. How about for you? What are some of your favorite things for a Super Bowl party?
I would advise for the blue to do UV blue.
That's
Or-
usually the case.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of all goes together. And I mean, the best part of a Jello shot is, you eliminate the taste of alcohol so you have more. It becomes a disaster. But yeah, the peach, I like the champagne idea. That would taste good. For me, I've been going over to my brother's friend's house. He is known as Pitbull.
Okay.
He is a white guy who he's put out rap albums, and he usually is he's an interesting guy. He puts out a Super Bowl video every year that is usually one of the most horrible things you'll ever see. Like, he did a Super Bowl video for the Broncos and the Seahawks Super Bowl with a video with the song "Rape Me" by Nirvana because of Seattle. And
Nice.
yeah, so he did. It was a horrible video, and it made everybody in the room feel wildly uncomfortable. And then there's usually a game that's played, whether it be on Xbox or PlayStation, whatever it may be, a 4-person shooter game that everybody has to play, and it just turns into him screen watching and trying to win, and then verbally assaulting everybody throughout the game. And then the actual game starts, and he's already about 10 beers deep and screaming at people to get their food made. Just a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling at people. It pretty much turns into seeing how drunk he can get and how uncomfortable he can make people feel throughout the Super Bowl. So that's our Super Bowl party, which it doesn't sound like a good time, but it is very entertaining to watch how drunk he can get and how abusive he can get towards us. Not
Right.
physically, but one thing I am making this year, which I saw on Twitter, Pinterest, all that garbage, was a Philly cheesesteak dip with bread.
Mhm.
So it's like cream cheese, Philly cheesesteak, and then provolone cheese all melted into one. And then you
Oh,
dip
wow.
bread into it. So I'm going to try that this year. And I fully expect to get verbally assaulted throughout the process of making it at the house.
Yeah, one of the new things I'm adding to the menu this year, I'm doing, and this was mildly by request, and this was mildly by it was necessity too. I have a couple of friends who are vegetarians, and so they're obviously not going to be feeling shrimp and chicken. But I'm doing fried pickles this year. I've always heard a lot of people talk about them, and I'm a pickle fan as far as like with burgers and Chick-fil-A. I'll get an extra pickle on a sandwich or whatnot. But I've never really been a huge fan of fried pickles. It's a novel concept, just never been a big thing of mine. I've seen them on the menu and I've had them at Hooters, but it's the last thing I'll order at Hooters. And so, but I'm making them this year, and I found a nice recipe: buttermilk, a little bit of hot sauce in the batter and whatnot. And I'm getting a new stainless steel skillet, so great time to use that. So that's something I'll be making, and I know a lot of my friends will really enjoy that and stuff. And one more thing I almost forgot to mention is another staple of my parties is I always do jungle juice, and I always call it super punch. Usually get a bottle Everclear. One year we couldn't find the right Everclear, so we ended up getting a bunch of bottles of 100 proof vodka. But this year I found Everclear, and kind of change around the recipe every year depending on what flavors I want to put in, and kind of have the flavors correlate with the Jello shot flavors. So you don't want to have people drinking too much of a different alcohol. But that's always something I do, and it's always always been a big hit with all my friends. So.
I'm pondering doing the pink panty droppers drink that I usually make. That
Okay. Yep.
is vodka, the crappiest vodka you can find, the crappiest beer you can find, and then pink lemonade concentrate, and pouring that all into one, stirring it up. That has never failed me before as far as being a group favorite. However, with Pitbull involved, I might, it might not be the best mix for him.
Right.
It might result in somebody actually being killed. But I do, looking at, the pulled pork I like. I mean, there's a lot of things. I'm not a fan of wings. I love, I like going out and eating wings, but it just feels like it's too by the book to get wings for the Super Bowl. And I feel like the thing that's always underrated is when somebody does, build your own nachos, where it's just a nacho. You get your chips, and then you can put whatever you want on those chips. I think that's one of the more underrated things to do for Super Bowl Sunday.
It always seemed really messy to me. What I always do is I'll just have, I'm doing it for this year, I have a friend making guacamole, and I'm making salsa, and then we're just having chips and just keeping that simple. And I'm doing barbecue chicken so people can, get creative and toss those on by any means. But I've always tossed around the idea of doing like a taco bar kind of thing or something like that, and it just always seemed like it's going to be like a gigantic mess or some sort of disaster. And I'm just like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go on and create a more sturdy menu. But I agree with you with as far as wings. I think if you're going to do, like I said, I'm doing buffalo shrimp, but I haven't done traditional buffalo wings for a party in a very, very long time. I will either do boneless wings with a completely different sauce, or I'll make up my own combination of something. Or, if you're going to do wings, be creative about it, because it's so, like you said, like it's so textbook. Then there's so many different wing recipes you can find online. Just at the click of, like you said, anything. You can go to YouTube and find 100 different wing recipes that'll be very good. So yeah, to avoid the status quo buffalo wings or slider. I think sliders are kind of getting, like burger sliders are getting overrated too. Now I think we've kind of run the course of sliders as far as a burger perspective.
I was thinking, a couple of years ago I did wings. This wasn't for the Super Bowl, but I dipped wings in Dorothy Lynch salad dressing and then deep fried them.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have Dorothy Lynch dressing up there. I'm
not familiar with it. Okay.
Okay. Well, it's like a Russian dressing.
Okay.
And
all right.
So dip that in and then deep fry it and then dip it again. And that's really good.
All right. That sounds solid.
Also, I know you're from Chicago, so you might be a little bit of a snob as far as ketchup on hot dogs go, but are you a blue cheese with buffalo wings type of guy?
Well, the irony of the ketchup hot dog deal is that I hate mustard. So I am the rare breed of Chicagoan that has no problem with ketchup on a hot dog. Obviously, if I'm back home, I'll just get only relish and onions. But back to with the blue cheese ranch, I'm guessing you're gonna go blue cheese versus ranch on the buffalo wing. I'm never a fan of either one of them. If it's good buffalo sauce, I really don't want to cover it up, especially if it's hot and spicy. I'm a hot and spicy fan for sure. So blue cheese has never really been my style. And I'm ranch. If I had to pick one, I guess I'd go blue cheese. That seems to be more of the traditional kind of. Those two flavors make a lot more sense. I feel like ranch is kind of like the primer of condiments. I feel like everybody just puts it on everything because it has its own distinct taste and really doesn't enhance anything else personally. So
yeah, I'm a big fan of. I used to be a ranch with wings guy, but in recent year, 2015, I tried blue cheese with wings, and you got to get a chunky blue cheese, but it is absolutely phenomenal. Just great tasting. And I don't even like blue cheese dressing. Like normally, I'm just like, please, I'd rather leave, fungus off of my food, but I'll take it this time. And with blue cheese, I've become big fan of, okay, yes, the people in Buffalo were right. Yeah, I shouldn't have it with any other thing. And with anything other than blue cheese. But I agree with you on the point. If you have a good enough sauce, there's no reason to cover it up.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I get, a lot of people are sensitive to spicy food, especially, me living up here in Minnesota. It's hard to find really good hot sauces. Especially if you go to a restaurant and you get a hot sauce. They say, "Oh yeah, this is our, blazing sauce," and it's, it tastes like there's ketchup in it, mixed in with it. You have to go somewhere and it has to be, imported from either another state or literally another country to find it to where it's actually hot up here. But and I like to play around with my own sauces. It's hard. As a Chicagoan, I grew up with eating mild sauce, which is virtually unknown literally anywhere outside of Cook County in Illinois. It is a perfect blend of ketchup, very hot sauce, and a sweet barbecue sauce. But it's hard to mix on your own, and it's not clear of whether it's a cooked thing or if it's an uncooked thing. I've made them both at home, cooked and uncooked. Never came out the same. Apparently, it's a certain type of barbecue sauce, but you can't find it everywhere. It's something that only restaurants can order. It's a myth that I've tried to figure out for years since leaving town. But that's something that I've always and I just never really think about having family ship it up or whatever. It's a perishable item of sorts, so it's hard to kind of bottle and contain. But that's something that I think should really be, anybody who ever gets to go to Chicago and you have wings somewhere or ribs or whatever, try mild sauce. We need to make mild sauce a national phenomenon. Maybe that could be the new ranch in 5 to 10 years,
Do you feel like the Super Bowl is kind of like Thanksgiving, where it's like, okay, you don't want a rookie in the kitchen trying anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for a while now, and I know a lot of people who've told me the first time they've come around said, yeah, any year you do a Super Bowl party, I'll be over. Because they've had bad experiences, and I've never had a bad experience with, all of my parties have, knock on wood, have gone pretty well, but I've never had a bad experience going over to anybody's house because I've never gone over to anyone else's house. But I've heard horror stories, yeah, kind of like in the mold of Thanksgiving or 4th of July, where you have people who are first timers, or it's hard to break in your first Super Bowl party, and when in doubt, cater out. Honestly, I mean, if this, you got a bunch of friends that, there's no shame in ordering 10 pizzas. If you got coupons or whatever, that's something that a buddy of mine did a few years back. You can make your own, snacks and whatever. But as far as food goes, if you got to have a recipe that you're solid in, something you can make at any given point of the year to break out for a Super Bowl party.
Yeah, it's, I mean, for me, I'm trying something new. However, I'm not a rookie in the kitchen, so
Sure. Right. Yeah.
If it's not good, I'll probably just call it an audible and go get something else, and not risk, throwing some crap out there. That's not going to happen.
Right.
As far as last couple things before we get out of here.
Yeah.
Is there what's your prediction for the game? Or are you going to do is it going to be Payne with Clubber Lang calling out Peyton Manning, or are we going to have a happy ending for Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl?
I think it's going to be painful for Peyton Manning, but it won't be nearly as painful as his last Super Bowl matchup. I do think that they will stay competitive in this ball game, but I think, like I said, we've got two good defenses going up against each other. I think Carolina finds a way to figure out Peyton Manning, but I think more importantly, Cam Newton and Greg Olsen and Jonathan Stewart and company find out a way to defeat this Denver defense. And I think the Carolina Panthers win their first ever Super Bowl by the score of 31-23.
So you're expecting kind of an exciting game.
Yeah, I think this will be a pretty close, exciting game. Yeah.
I'm nervous for I think it'll be, low scoring, which worries me that it might be a little boring. I like a little bit of a shootout, not to the point of 56-52 or something like that, but I am a tad nervous that it could be, a 19-17 game where, it's a fine game, but it's not as entertaining as,
previous Super Bowl.
Yeah,
sure.
previous years. Who do you think is going to get a big break off of this game, as far as a player that's going to, their stock's going to rise completely from the.
That's a very interesting question. I think we could see Greg Olsen maybe, rise up to possibly being the new premier tight end in the NFL if he has a big game. I mean, we know about how great Rob Gronkowski is, but we saw the decline of Jimmy Graham, this past season. And, he seemed to be the guy to almost reinvent the position. So I think if Greg Olsen has a big game, I think his name grows even larger. I mean, obviously fantasy football players have known about him and serious bettors know about him as well, but I think we could see his stock rise tremendously. And the legend that's growing this year with Josh Norman. If he has a big game, I think we could see him, kind of rise up to the level almost possibly of Richard Sherman from the last couple of years. I think he would be a guy that, especially as far as from maybe a commercial aspect, we could see him a lot more next year should he have a big game. I thought those would be the two biggest names I could see growing. I don't see a lot of personality guys on that Denver side other than maybe Von Miller or Demaryius Thomas, but I think there's a little more personality and flavor from that Carolina team that could, project more as far as household names go down the line.
I'm surprised there was no hip thrust prop bet on Bovada or anywhere. I didn't see any for Von Miller with the hip thrusting.
I haven't seen that, but there is will there be an excessive celebration penalty at yes plus 250 at Bovada. So, and I think that's something I might want to look at too, because like I said, we got quite a few eccentric guys where, should we see a touchdown? It's the Super Bowl. I mean, guys are going to get excited. So we might see some excessive celebration from some teams. Plus 250, that's nothing to sneeze at. So it might be worth throwing a little, small amount of money on. And that's one thing I want to say in closing to everybody. This is only one game. We will have plenty of basketball and hockey going down the stretch. Football will be back around the corner 6 months before you know it. So please bet responsibly. I bet responsibly as much as you would drink responsibly. So two things you need to do this weekend: drink responsibly, but bet responsibly, because this is only one sporting event. There's other games going on during the day. There's better money opportunities than the Super Bowl. It always will be. So have fun with it. Play around with it. Set your bankrolls accordingly and bet responsibly.
Well, on that note, Alex, do you want to tell everybody where we can find you on Twitter and the internets?
Yes, I'll be on Twitter at AXSmithSports. Not tweeting a whole lot because I've been pretty busy. Might be tweeting a little bit during the game, but wouldn't be much. But I will be tweeting, obviously, plays and stuff that I have this week. Had a hockey winner tonight. Hockey's back in season. Go find me at axsmithsports.com and at sportsmemo.com. Those are the only two sites in the world where you can get my Super Bowl 50 prop package. I have 7 props, including 2 best bets, available for $39. And if you sign up this week, you'll get all of my other basketball and hockey plays as well. So find me at either one of those sites, axsmithsports.com or sportsmemo.com. You got anything going on for the weekend as far as shows go? I'm guessing you won't be doing a show Sunday, obviously with the game, but
nothing Sunday, and then but we got Johnny Bobo on Thursday.
Okay.
Heaven knows what we'll be talking about that night. But yeah, we'll be back next Sunday for the Bob Sullivan Show with G. Stelio. Talk about his music career and talk about his opinions on what happened in the Super Bowl. But yeah, we'll see you again next week here on the box seats with Alex P. Smith and Bob Sullivan. You're on LateNightSportsRadio.com. Coming up next, you can hear Hold 1005 podcast. And good night, everybody. Have a good Super Bowl.